Hey everybody, this is Derek Johnson with Jesus Culture, and have a few questions we're going to answer by video here, so I'm just going to jump into it. First one is, how did you get involved in worship ministry? For me, it was kind of simple. I mean, I'd played music my entire life, really grew up with a passion for it, but had never really seen music used in the context of worship, and so again, I knew I had a huge passion for music, but the moment that I really encountered the presence of God for the first time in my life in a really tangible and marking kind of a way was in worship, and it was happening in worship at a church where the people were really free. They really loved worshiping Jesus freely, and the music was cool. It was kind of on, just had a really cool creative edge to it, and I loved seeing the worship music being lifted up to God, being creative and really passionate worship. And so for me, I saw all that really happen. I encountered the presence of God in that church, and with worship being done in that context. And I knew for me, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in worship ministry, and I want to be involved in ultimately more than making cool songs and making creative songs that glorify Jesus. I really want to see people encounter Jesus and have the same type of encounter that I had, when I was 17. That really changed everything. So for me, that's kind of always been the goal. It's always been the mission, is that people would encounter God through worship, and then that can happen through songs we write or through songs other people write. But either way, that we when we come together and we worship, God shows up and He responds and He touches us and transforms our lives. And so for me, that's always been the goal. That's why I love doing worship ministry particularly. So long answer for the first one. Number two is, what's been your experience in leading worship? For me, I've led now, I guess, at 3 different churches over the course of me leading worship. I started leading worship at 17. I'm now 29, rounding my way towards 30. And so I've been doing this for 11, 12 years almost. And, honestly, again, I led at a church, at a Vineyard Church, and then I led at Bethel Church in Redding, California. And now I'm one of the worship leaders here at Jesus Culture in Sacramento, where we've planted a church. About to celebrate our 2-year anniversary this September, actually. And so that's been just kind of some of the places that I've been. But, really the experience of leading worship has really been the same as it was at the beginning, which was that as a worship leader, what I got to bring to a congregation was really the overflow of my life lived out, really in secret and in private when people aren't looking, my own personal pursuit of Jesus, and that, still to this day, I'm absolutely blown away that when I grab a guitar and go, lock myself in a room, I can worship, and God shows up, and He encounters me, and He encourages me and fills me up again, and that's really this incredible exchange that we get to have in worship. And so the goal as a worship leader is, how do I bring that same overflow into a congregation, and how do I hopefully lead just as freely as I do in private as I do in public, and when those two things meet, it's a really beautiful thing. So number 3, what is worship to you? Honestly, it's what I was just saying, that worship has very little to do with music. Music is just sound, it's notes. Lyrics are just words of us trying to express what's happening in our lives with God, and what's happening in our hearts and in our minds and in our spirits as we worship God. But really, worship to me is living a life that is in awe of Jesus, that is continually living to encounter him and to ascribe worth to him. I mean, it's what worship means, is to ascribe worth to God, that we are constantly staying on the edge of remembering and reminding ourselves how worthy God is, and how much he deserves really our love and our affection and our time and our devotion. And that happens outside of church. It just does, worship is just not something that happens in the 5 to 6 hours that we meet together on a Sunday. It truly is, it's a lifestyle, it's an approach to what we do, and it's actually what we were created for. That we really won't be fulfilled in any other thing as much as we will when we are correctly aligned with our identity, that we're worshipers. We're created to encounter God. We're created to magnify Jesus. We're created to lift him up and to worship him. And really, when we're not doing that, we're like a fish out of water. It's kind of suffocating to not be in that place. But when you are in that lifestyle of worship, continually aware of and lifting up God, it's in that place that we really do find, this is what we're created for. This is what gives me life. This is what brings me life. So that's certainly part of it. And then number 4, what are you expecting God to do in the upcoming conference? What I honestly expect, truthfully, is that God does what he always does, which is when we come together with one vision and one focus, which is to encounter him, to lift him up, to worship him for all the things that he's done in our lives, not just from saving us, but the fact that we've got a roof over our heads and we ate this morning, and that God really has blessed us in the big things and in the small things. And when we remind ourselves of those things and we keep ourselves thankful and we bring all that into a setting where we've come together to worship him, really to take our eyes off of the things that maybe haven't gone the way that we think they should, but we come with thankfulness and thanksgiving and we worship him, God shows up and he responds. And literally every time God shows up, we leave changed. We leave different. We leave encouraged and filled and reminded of who we are, what we're called to do, who we're called to be. And so that's what I expect. I expect us to come and really pour our hearts out, and then watch as God pours his love and his heart back out on us, right? And that really is, we love because he first loved us. That we're showing up to worship and respond to the things that he's already done. That we're in love with him and we've laid down our lives to worship him because he laid down his life for us. And so it's this beautiful exchange that we get to have with the creator of the universe. And honestly, I'm always blown away when we show up in a room, whatever room it is, a church, a theater, a garage, it doesn't matter. We show up somewhere together and we say we're here to worship. And the creator of the universe, the God who hung the stars in the sky, who breathed life into us, he shows up. He shows up right there in the middle of our simple gathering. And so that's what I'm expecting him to do. And I've just never had a moment where God showed up and I left the same. And that's what I get so excited about doing, what we're going to do in this conference, which is pursue God and then truly feel his pursuit of us in exchange. So I'm so excited. I can't wait to be out with you guys, and I'll see you soon.